Hello everyone, a very pleasant day to you. National Economic Council sets up committee to fast-track implementation of livestock development. Senate President Akpabio received U.S. ambassador seeks more collaboration between U.S. and Nigeria. And the Managing Director of Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed, resigns amid corruption allegations. A very good day to you and welcome to First Next News Port Harcourt. I am Becky Usoro. Now the news in details. A committee to speed up the implementation of livestock production in Nigeria, the committee chaired by Governor Nasiru Idris of Kebbi State, was set up during an emergency meeting of the NEC held virtually and chaired by Vice President Kashim Shettima. It has one member each representing the 6 geopolitical zones, comprising Bauchi for the northeast, Niger for the north-central, Ondo for the southwest, Imo for the southeast, Cross River State for the south-south region, and Kebbi for the northwest. Other members of the committee include the Ministers of Livestock Development, Agriculture and Food Security, Budget and Economic Planning, and the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agribusiness. Speaking at the 155th NEC meeting, Vice President Shettima said a practical, enduring and nationally accepted solution to the farmer-herder crisis would guarantee food security in the country. The Vice President identified mismanagement of long-standing tensions between farmers and herders as a cause of the conflicts that have strained the ancestral bonds of communities across Nigeria. He regretted that what started as a challenge of coexistence gradually hardened into cycles of violence that were allowed to persist for far too long without a durable solution, while commending President Bola Tinubu's bold initiative to transform livestock production in Nigeria, especially by integrating the sector as a key component of the national economy. Moving on, Farouk Ahmed has resigned as the Managing Director of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, amid corruption allegations leveled against him by the chairman of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote. Presidential spokesman Bayo Onanuga, who disclosed this in a statement, says Benga Komolafe has left his position as the chief executive of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC. Onanuga further revealed that President Bola Tinubu has sent the names of the 2 nominees to the Senate for confirmation as their replacement, asking for the expedited confirmation of Orishe Meyiwa Eyesan as CEO of NUPRC and Saudu Mohammed as NMDPRA chief. As before his resignation, the former NMDPRA chief visited Tinubu at the State House in Abuja, spending less than 30 minutes before he left the premises. While the reason for the visit was unclear, he also declined to speak with journalists, saying it's already late for an interview. Moving on, Senate President Akpabio has received the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Richard Mills Jr., stressing the need to strengthen the relationship between the 2 countries. The duo, who met at the National Assembly complex in Abuja, expressed their desire for a more robust diplomatic relationship between Nigeria and America. Senator Akpabio said that Nigeria and America had a shared goal of operating a democratic system as the country's democracy was modeled after the U.S. system, and therefore the need to nurture and preserve it. On his part, Ambassador Mills said the visit was aimed at reviewing the state of U.S. to Nigerian relations and exploring ways to further strengthen cooperation between both nations. According to him, the United States mission would continue to engage with Nigeria in pursuit of shared democratic and development goals, stressing that the meeting provided an opportunity to gain insight into the legislative priorities of the Nigerian Senate in the year ahead. Moving on, the Nigerian Customs Service says it would enforce penalties against designated banks that delayed the remittance of customs revenue in a move aimed at strengthening transparency and safeguarding government earnings. Disclosing this in a statement, NCS spokesman Abdullahi Maiwada said the delays undermine the efficiency, transparency, and integrity of government revenue administration. He also explained that any bank that fails to remit collected customs revenue with the prescribed timeline will be liable to penalty interest calculated at 3% above the prevailing Nigerian interbank offered rates for the period of the delay. He added that affected banks will be formally notified of the delayed amounts, the applicable penalty, and the deadline for settlement. Away from that story, no fewer than 38 senior officers, including an Assistant Commandant General ACG of the Corps, have been dismissed by the federal government from the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps NSCDC. The officers were dismissed for various offenses, including gross misconduct, insubordination, and violation of extant laws. The dismissals followed approval by the Civil Defense, Correctional, Fire, and Immigration Services Board CDC-FIB under the Ministry of Interior. According to the Public Relations Officer of the NSCDC, Babawale Afolabi, a total of 76 senior and junior personnel in the Corps faced various disciplinary measures for acts unbecoming of the officers in 2025. He said 20 junior officers were dismissed from service, while 3 personnel were demoted by 1 rank and 7 others issued warning letters. Babawale said 2 senior officers were demoted by 2 ranks, another officer was demoted by a rank, and 5 officers were issued warning letters. Up ahead on the news, South African government raids U.S. refugee center, arrests 7 Kenyans. An Australian Prime Minister announces crackdown on hate speech after Bondi shooting. Details in a moment. Welcome back. We now move on to the foreign scene. A center in South Africa processing applications for the United States Refugee Program was raided by immigration and law enforcement officers, and 7 Kenyan nationals were arrested for working there illegally. South Africa's Home Affairs Ministry said the center in Johannesburg was processing applications by white South Africans under the Trump administration's new program, giving them priority for refugee status in the U.S. According to the ministry, Kenyans were working at the center alongside U.S. officials despite entering South Africa on tourist visas, which did not allow them to work, the Home Affairs Ministry said in a statement. It said no U.S. officials were arrested in the raid and it was not a diplomatic site. The Foreign Affairs Ministry explained that the raid is bound to increase tensions between the U.S. and South Africa. U.S. President Donald Trump has been especially critical of the South African government since he returned to office, claiming the country is violently persecuting its white Afrikaner minority and also pursuing an anti-American foreign policy. U.S. President Trump's widely rejected claims over the treatment of Afrikaners in South Africa led to his administration setting up the program, offering them refugee status in the U.S. South Africa's government has said that white South Africans do not meet the criteria for refugee status because there is no persecution, but says it won't stop them from applying for relocation under the U.S. program. Away from that story, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says his government will crack down on hate speech following Sunday's deadly shooting at Bondi Beach that targeted a Jewish festival. 15 people were killed when 2 gunmen opened fire at an event to mark the first day of Hanukkah. Albanese says the new laws will target those who spread hate, division, and radicalization. He further explained that the Home Affairs Minister will also be given new powers to cancel or refuse visas for those who spread hate, and a new task force will be set up to ensure the education system prevents, tackles, and properly responds to anti-Semitism. According to him, the new laws will also include penalties for preachers and leaders who promote violence, a new federal offense of aggravated hate speech, and the introduction of hate as an aggravating factor in sentencing crimes for online threats and harassment. To end the news, a recap of some of the major stories. National Economic Council has set up committee to fast-track the implementation of livestock development. We brought to you that the Senate President Akpabio has received the U.S. Ambassador Richard Miles Jr. in a bid to seek more collaboration between U.S. and Nigeria. We also brought to you a report that the Managing Director of Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed, has resigned amid corruption allegations. That's all on the news this hour. I am Becky Osar. Many thanks for watching. Bye for now.